Welcome to the Monday edition of Bible Time. I trust that you had a great Thanksgiving weekend and that you were encouraged at church yesterday. I know at Believers Fellowship we took the time to consider Christ our intercessor, Christ our advocate. And what an encouraging and strengthening truth that is. And we're continuing today with our daily Bible reading that we're doing through the Old Testament over a 2-year period. And we're in the book of Job, and today we come to chapters 15 and 16. And we're learning about triumphant faith. And the example here being this man, Job, who is attacked by Satan, and he's not helped by his 3 friends. And we see his faith endure through all of that. It's a triumphant faith. Doesn't mean that it's a perfect faith. Doesn't mean it's a faith that doesn't need to grow. In fact, that's exactly what God is doing here. Even though he spoke highly of Job at the beginning of the book, he's a blameless man who turns away from evil and fears God. There were still things that he could learn and grow in, and that's what is happening through the book. He's better off at the end than he is at the beginning. He does have to go through all of this suffering, though, to get there. But I think at the end, Job would say it was worth it, even though at the time it's obvious he was not enjoying it at all. When we get to chapter 15, we get to round 2 with his 3 friends, and Eliphaz is back up at the plate. And Eliphaz was kind and gracious, as he was the first one to speak of the 3 friends. This time the gloves come off. He's not so gracious anymore. And he attacks Job. He accuses Job. He insults Job. You can read all about that in chapter 15. And he's intolerant of Job insisting that he is innocent. And he's intolerant of Job seeming to challenge God and what God is doing and wanting to prove his case before God. He doesn't think that Job is reverent enough. He doesn't think Job fears God enough, even though God had said there's nobody like Job. But obviously Job still does need to grow. And some of the things that these friends point out about Job no doubt were true. It seems like Job got pretty angry and emotional. If you look at verses 12 and 13, Eliphaz says to him, "Why does your heart carry you away?" That's speaking of his emotions. And why do your eyes flash? Yeah, that you know that look, with the angry look. That you turn your spirit against God and bring such words out of your mouth. And so even when your opponents are accusing you, attacking you, there's generally something in there that's true. I mean, they're pointing out things that they can find. And that's something that's no doubt true about Job. But he comes to the same conclusion. These guys keep beating the same drum, that it's the wicked man who suffers. Job, you're suffering. You must be wicked. And so he comes to the same conclusion this time around. And so then Job responds in chapter 16, and he dismisses Eliphaz. Actually, he kind of dismisses all 3 of them, that they are sorry comforters, and no doubt that's true. You wouldn't want these guys showing up in your hospital room. And he says that what you're doing here, Eliphaz, in verse 10, if you understand that right, it's like you're just giving me a slap in the face. I'm hurting already, and you come up and make it worse by slapping me in the face. And Job thinks, we get some insight into what he's thinking here. He thinks God's chasing him like he's an enemy. That's how Job is feeling. And that God is assaulting him for no reason. Job doesn't know what's going on. Obviously, he doesn't know about the conversation between God and Satan. And he just thinks God's out to get him. He wants his, and you can understand this, because you would want the same thing. He just wants the suffering to go away. Just go away. So that's where Job is at. Tomorrow we'll pick up more of his response in chapter 17. But there's something interesting here in chapter 16 in Job's response that ties into what we looked at yesterday with Christ our intercessor, Christ our advocate, Christ our mediator, and the work that he does on our behalf, representing us before God by standing in the presence of God and praying on our behalf and pleading the merits of his sacrifice on our behalf, interceding for us before God. And in verse 19 of chapter 16, Job makes a very interesting statement. He says, "Even now, behold, my witness is in heaven, and he who testifies for me is on high." He's pointing to an advocate in heaven. And so, as far back as Job, the oldest book in the Bible, there was an understanding that for a man to stand before God, he has to have an advocate, someone in heaven advocating for him. And of course, we know, I mean, that verse really could be a cross-reference to 1 John chapter 2, verse 1, which says that we have an advocate in heaven, Jesus Christ, the righteous one. And that's what we looked at yesterday. And that is something that I don't know that we think enough about it. We don't think about his intercessory work enough. But that is something that is so meaningful and so important and so significant for us, that he is there as our advocate. The righteous one is advocating on our behalf. That's something to be thankful for. That's something to start off your week with. Maybe you've got 3 friends that are giving you a hard time. Maybe you're suffering in a number of ways. But you have an advocate in heaven, and that's the Lord Jesus Christ. We can look to him, we can trust in him, and he will protect us. So I hope that encourages you for today, helps you a little bit as we look at this book of Job, and we'll be back tomorrow to look at some more on Bible Time.